Hey there, and welcome to Explosive Enterprises. Today we're going to delve into a pretty specific niche of the airsoft gear world, electronic targets, specifically the Acetech Alignmentor. As per usual, when we receive a product from a manufacturer, we like to be transparent about it. Acetech did send us this target for free on the condition that we review it, but they have no editorial control over the content of this review, so everything you see here is our own opinions. Let's get right into it. In the box, you get the target itself, an Ace Herald Wi-Fi adapter, a USB-C charging cable, and instruction manuals for both the Alignmentor and the Ace Herald. Since this thing doesn't really fit into our usual review format, we're going to break it down into the overall design and specifications, target setup and the app, recording accuracy, and our conclusions. The Alignmentor measures around 10.5 by 10.5 inches overall, or around 27 centimeters by 27 centimeters, with the target area being a good bit smaller at 5.5 by 5.5 inches, or 14 centimeters. The target frame is made of white semi-translucent polycarbonate and houses the electronics as well as the Ace Herald, which is a USB dongle used to connect the target to the AceSoft app via Wi-Fi. The Ace Herald slots into the top of the target into a recessed USB port, leaving about half of it exposed. If you plan on using this with other Alignmentors in the area, you can use these small dip switches on the Ace Herald to set the channel of your target, and the instructions for doing so are printed on the back of the Alignmentor. In addition to the Wi-Fi adapter, the electronics housing also contains the on-off switch for the target. When the target is turned on, the backlight briefly lights up and a green LED flashes in the corner of the target every few seconds, so you don't accidentally leave it running and wear down the battery. Speaking of, the battery is a 3600 mAh 3.7 volt LiPo, which lasts about 2 hours with the target LEDs at full power and about 12 hours with them turned off. The battery is charged via the included USB-C cable, which plugs into the side of the electronics housing. Acetech recommends that you charge the target for 3 hours after unboxing it and topping it off every 3 months after that to maintain the health of the battery. The frame is designed to give you a variety of different options for mounting the target. The rear and bottom of the target have threaded inserts for 1/4-20 screws, which are the standard size for camera and lighting tripods. 3 mount points can be found on the sides of the target for metric M5 screws, allowing you to attach a bracket, according to the Acetech documentation. Though weirdly, apart from the photo on their website and in the manual, I don't see the bracket up for sale anywhere, so that might be a future release. Finally, there are 2 slots on the top of the target through which you can string a wire or some paracord, allowing you to hang the target off of basically anything that'll hold the weight, like wall hooks, tree branches, door handles, etc. As we mentioned, there is an array of backlighting LEDs. These help with target visibility and also serve to let you know when the target is recording, which is a nice touch. The highest brightness setting is a bit much, though thankfully you can easily adjust that in the app. Attached to the frame is a consumable polyurethane target surface, which according to Acetech lasts around 7,000 rounds at 1 joule and should not be shot with guns that shoot over 3 joules. If you do manage to damage it or it wears out over time, spares are available on Acetech's website. Swapping the target surface involves removing these 4 nylon parts from the front of the frame via these 8 M5 countersunk screws, and simply peeling the surface off of the frame and aligning a new one with the screw holes. Pretty simple. The way this target works is actually surprisingly novel. When a BB impacts the target surface, 4 microphones positioned in the corners of the target frame register the volume of the hit. By comparing the intensity of the sound recorded by each microphone, a microprocessor can plot the location of the impact point on the target surface, and then correlate that to a location on the actual target behind the surface, which is announced over the app.
6.
The obvious question here is, how accurate is that system? Especially since you're not actually recording an impact on the target, but on a surface around 3/4 of an inch in front of the target. We're going to take a look at recording accuracy later on in the video, but for now, let's go through how you set this thing up. Once you've selected your preferred mounting method, charged up the target, and inserted the Ace Herald, you can pair the target to the AceSoft app. Man, I feel like DangPods or something. Anyway, the target uses Wi-Fi rather than Bluetooth, so you'll need to disconnect from any other networks that your phone may be on, and search for the Alignmentor 1 Wi-Fi source, and connect to that. Once you're connected to the network, the target should show up under the Device tab after a few seconds. Tapping on the target in the list will bring up the interface. The interface shows us the extreme spread of our shots, the total points scored, time elapsed, shots fired, and shots missed. Clicking on the gear in the top right allows us to access the Alignmentor settings. Here we can set the brightness of the backlight LEDs, the shot limit, the time limit, and can run a self-test. Back at the main interface screen, hitting start will activate the backlight LEDs on the target and will give you a ready alert in the app.
Ready?
After that, each shot on target will be called out with a score and will continue until you hit your time limit, shot limit, or you press stop.
Out. 9. Game over.
We'll start off with the most common use case for this kind of target, slow fire on semi-auto.
Ready? 8, 6, 3, 9, 3, 2, 1.
Unsurprisingly, no drama there, and at least with a quick review of the camera footage, the shot recording seemed to line up pretty well with the actual impacts. Now, according to Acetech, this thing will actually keep up with rapid fire as well, up to 20 rounds per second, so let's give that a try. This Arcturus PP19 Vityaz is shooting around 16 rounds per second, and yeah, my apologies to the GBBR gang, but it's an AEG, since I don't actually have any full auto GBBs. We'll load 10 rounds into this mag and see how many hits we can get the target to actually record.
1, 2, 4, 7. Game over.
And truth in advertising, it does seem to keep up. One more thing I was curious to try out was how it might work with a multi-shot shotgun. Theoretically, this microphone system shouldn't really be able to cope with multiple simultaneous impacts, but let's see what happens.
Out. 4. 6. 7. 8. Game over.
As expected, yeah, it doesn't really work. But honestly, that's a bit of an edge case, so we can't really fault it there. Now that we've looked at the consistency of the hit recording, let's see how accurate the actual positional scoring is. The obvious way to test this would be to simply film the target in slow motion, observe the BB impacts, and compare them to the output in the app. The problem with that is parallax. The BBs never actually hit the target surface itself, and instead hit the protective cover, which is offset about 15mm from the target surface. Due to that offset and the fact that the camera needs to be set up to the side of the target, any footage is going to be skewed by parallax, which would make the BB impacts appear to be in a different position than they were in reality. Our solution is to project the geometry of the actual target directly onto the protective cover, and then visually track the impact marks. We accomplish this using 2 of these little 3D printed jigs here, because this wouldn't be a Time Bomb Produced Explosive Enterprises video if something wasn't 3D printed. We mount the first jig directly to the target surface, hold it in place with some masking tape, and then remount the protective cover. Then we line up the second jig with the first, and use some dry erase markers to trace out the target scoring zones. Dry erase markers are good here because they should smudge a bit when BBs hit them, making it easier to spot our hits. We'll take 4 shots here, and then see how the target looks.
5. 7. 9. 9.
Comparing the smudges to what the app was telling us, it's pretty much spot on, which is honestly way better than I figured it'd do. Pretty impressive. The idea of a precision tracking target for airsoft is interesting and maybe a bit odd. Acetech advertises this target as being useful for dialing in your hop-up, but this thing has a pretty small target surface, and maybe I'm just not enough of a precision shooter, but I would generally be dialing my hop-up in to hit a target that size at 30 to 50 meters, not dialing it in to get more accurate hits within a 150mm circle. Now, I could see this being quite handy for sighting in optics, though again, you usually just do that by following your BBs when shooting out in the open. My personal biggest use case is honestly just for plinking. It's fun to get the audio feedback from the target, and the polyurethane surface absorbs the impacts of BBs quite well, so they drop straight to the ground rather than shattering or ricocheting all over the room. Another cool use for it is you can also set it up as a course of fire clock by going into the settings, changing the shot limit to 1, and using the Alignmentor as the final target in your course of fire. You hit start, which starts the clock, go through your course of fire, and once you hit any part of the Alignmentor surface, the game ends and the clock stops. Very handy for speed shooting practice, and cheaper than a lot of systems meant to do the same thing. If we did have to level one serious criticism of the Alignmentor, it would be the fact that it requires the use of a proprietary app to function. Not that we're expecting that Acetech will go out of business anytime soon, but it's always a bit of a risk buying a product that will effectively be a functionless brick if the manufacturer decides to stop supporting its associated app. It'd be really cool for Acetech to open source the app itself, or perhaps include the ability for future versions to do the hit location calculation internally and announce them through speakers, just so you aren't entirely reliant on your cell phone to make it work. Overall, electronic targets are pretty far down the list of necessities for airsoft, but if you are in the market for one, especially one that calls out hit locations and scores, it appears that the Alignmentor is the most economical option by a pretty wide margin, and looks to be quite a bit easier to set up, so we'll let you be the judge of the value there. Well, on that note, that's all for this review. If you have any questions or feedback, we'd love to hear it in the comments section. And if you're interested in supporting us further, feel free to check out our merch store or subscribe to our Patreon. Links to both in the description text below. And as always, thanks for watching.